Hello, friends. How are you doing today? I hope you're well. I hope you're happy and healthy, and I hope all is good with you. What do we have today? We have Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, and here you see a picture of an alligator or crocodile. This is the most famous writing of Joseph Conrad. He was born Joseph Teodor Konrad Korzeniowski. He was born in the Ukraine in 1857. His parents were Polish, but they had passed away by the time he was 11. So he spent the age of from 16 to 36 working on ships as a different positions that he had. He started as a young laborer and worked his way up to become a accomplished captain of ships, and served King Leopold during his lifetime, and he traveled to Africa as in charge of a steamship, and that is where he got his experience to write these books that he wrote, and his most famous one is called Heart of Darkness. He was inspired by his experiences working on a steamboat in the Congo. He was born in 1857 and he passed away in 1924. So he lived 67 years approximately. And this is the book that was the inspiration for the movie Apocalypse Now. Francis Ford Coppola asked Marlon Brando to read this before he played the role of Kurtz. And Kurtz is the character in the story here that the protagonist of the story, the lead character, Marlowe, is in search of. And of course, that would be representative of the author in the semi-autobiographical form of his own experiences. And it's dark. It's a very dark, spooky, mist-filled, misty and moonlight and jungle and fog and darkness. And so I'd like to read a portion of it for you. It's a short read. It's only 110 pages. And then you have a second book or essay, short book called Youth that is included. But the book Heart of Darkness is only 110 pages long. So I've just started it. I'm on page 36. And so this is only a 2 or 3 day read. But so far it's very, very compelling. It's bizarre and it's difficult to get through because of the old English writing, again, written in, let's see, when it was published. It was published in 1899. So the turn of the century, near the year 1900, 1899, it was published in Blackwood's magazine as a serial. So it would be published over a certain number of days, right? And he changed his name to the English version of Joseph Conrad after he moved to England. He became a British citizen in 1886, right? So there you have that. And you have the introduction that's given here by another writer who also wrote about the colonial days of the Congo. His name, Tim Butcher. He writes the introduction, so he does a very nice introduction for the book. But I would like to read to you a snippet that displays synchronicity once again in the last recent book that I shared with you by Paul Hellyer, who went off the rails believing that there are aliens living on Mars in his book, The Money Mafia. Remember I mentioned that in one of my previous videos. Well, wouldn't you know it? What are the odds of having that come up in this next book? Remember I said that every book leads to the next one and has a connection to the next one. This hasn't changed since I've been reading for the past 30 years, right? Every book leads to the next one. Every book leads to the next one. If you allow yourself to flow from one book to the next, they may seem unconnected from the outside, but as you go through them, you realize that each one helps you to learn from the last one and builds on the last one in different directions. It's all interconnected. And so we'll see that here. In this part of the story, he's gone and he's asked his relatives to help him get a commission to lead a ship, because this is what he wants to do. He's always been fascinated with ships, and he would like to go to Africa because he had this image in his mind. He saw this thing in a store window, and it had a image of Africa, and so he wanted to travel there. And so he had some relatives who were able to call some local political people that were connected, and sure enough, he got a commission to work on a ship. He doesn't say specifically what position he has, but it's kind of like he's kind of in charge of a ship. He's not the captain of the ship, but he's kind of like an assistant leader of the ship somehow. And so he travels to Africa, and unfortunately the ship ends up burning in a fire. So he's going to take him a long time to find out how to get out of there. Apparently it's going to take him some months to repair. Apparently the ship is repairable or something, or a different ship. I'm not sure. It's very confusing. It's hard to know exactly what he's talking about. But let me just read a small portion for you before I go. He meets this guy and he's talking to them, and he's basically speaking to himself, this soliloquy, what he's doing there. He's asking about, about the nature of the jungle and the river and the total the total danger of where they are. He asks the question. He says, "What were we who had strayed in there? Could we handle that dumb thing, or would it handle us? I felt how confoundedly big was that thing that couldn't talk, and perhaps was deaf as well. What was in there?" He's speaking about the jungle and the darkness and the river and the moonlight. "I could see a little ivory coming out from there, and I had heard Mr. Kurtz was in there." This is who he's searching for, Kurtz. Remember Kurtz from Apocalypse Now. "I had heard enough about it too, God knows. Yet somehow it didn't bring any image with it, no more than if I had been told an angel or a fiend was in there. I believed it in the same way one of you might believe there are inhabitants in the planet Mars. I knew once a Scottish sailmaker who was certain, dead sure, there were people in Mars. If you asked him for some idea how they looked and behaved, he would get shy and mutter something about walking on all fours. If you as much as smiled, he would, though a man of 60, offer to fight you. I would not have gone so far as to fight for Kurtz, but I went for him near enough to a lie. You know I hate, detest, and can't bear a lie. Not because I am straighter than the rest of us, but simply because it appalls me. There is a taint of death, a flavor of mortality in lies, which is exactly what I hate and detest in the world, what I want to forget. It makes me miserable and sick, like biting something rotten would do. Temperament, I suppose. Well, I went near enough to it by letting the young fool there believing anything he liked to imagine as to my influence in Europe. I became in an instant as much of a pretense as the rest of the bewitched pilgrims. This simply because I had a notion it somehow would be of help to that Kurtz whom at the time I did not see. You understand? He was just a word for me. I did not see the man in the name any more than you do. Do you see him? Do you see the story? Do you see anything? It seems to me I'm trying to tell you a dream, making a vain attempt because no relation of a dream can convey the dream sensation, that commingling of absurdity, surprise, and bewilderment in a tremor of struggling revolt, that notion of being captured by the incredible, which is of the very essence of dreams. And so you can see how meandering this text is, and this is only about a third of that paragraph. So that one paragraph starts at the beginning of page 36 when he's talking to this guy, and then he's just goes right off the rails and is talking about trying to describe where he is and trying to describe. And if you've ever listened to somebody try and describe a dream, it is so painful to listen to because it only makes sense to the person who has experienced the dream. So if someone says to you, "Oh, I had a dream last night," and you say, "Well, tell me about your dream." If you ask that to some people, they will go on and on and on about all kinds of detail. And it's very hard to maintain a focus or to maintain any kind of interest because it has no applicability to your reality. So that's one of the most difficult things to listen to is someone else's dream. I mean, some are more coherent than others, and maybe some will be interesting, but on the whole, it can be an exercise in futility. And so this is kind of like what the author is doing here. Joseph Conrad is trying to express his feelings that he experienced while he was in the depth of Africa. And it ends up sounding bizarre and running into many different directions and darkness. And there is death and fever, and the natives that are there are in horrible conditions, and some of them are in chains, and some of them are working as slaves, and some of them are killing each other, and some of them are working as servants. And so there's many different positions that the native people have that are there, but in general, they're getting the worst end of the deal. In no uncertain terms, they're either working as servants or they're working as slaves or they're dying. And it's a picture of anarchy and chaos because nobody knows what either person is doing, and there's different outposts here and there, and it becomes a blur of chaos and insanity. That's as far as I've gotten so far, but no wonder he called it Heart of Darkness, because he's gone to a place that is full of confusion, and it ends up making his own heart dark. And apparently to this day, people are not sure what the theme of the book Heart of Darkness is. They argue about what is the main purpose of the book, or what's the moral of the story. And some people say, well, it's about the horrific colonialism that occurred under King Leopold at the time to take the resources out of Africa, the ivory trade, and the amount of torture and killing that was done to make that trade efficient. And it is horrible and terrible. And that's part of it. That's part of the story that he's relating. And then there's the other part of the story, which is his own emotional trauma and damage and chaos that he experienced, his mental damage that he experienced. And it's also talking about the darkness that exists within the heart of the different characters that he meets, and how they become only concerned about making money and not having any care for their fellow human beings. And so that's part of the story as well. And so there's different parts of the story that you can focus on. But so far, it is a bizarre dream. It is a dark, chaotic dream. So I'm not going to try and share it with you because it might be mentally damaging, as it could be for me. So hopefully I can survive this. I think I will. But so far, very, very compelling. And the flavor that it's written in 1899 is very, very different than the way people would speak today or even write today. And so it is difficult to get through, but at the same time, it has a stark beauty to it, the way that the words are being formed and expressed. It is still enough of modern English so that it makes sense. I'll give you another example. The beginning of that paragraph begins as like this. He's talking about this guy that he met that is asking him about Kurtz. And he says, I let him run on, this papier-mâché Mephistopheles, a paper-mâché devil, he calls him. And it seemed to me that if I tried, I could poke my forefinger through him and would find nothing inside but a little loose dirt, maybe. See, this style that he has is very descriptive and full of allegories and full of um, metaphors and full of similes. And the dialogue switches from first person to descriptive, and it's quite a remarkable piece of writing, I must say. Not surprising that it has been popular, and probably will continue to be popular for the next 100 years, I suppose. But it is what it is. So we're getting through it. And as I said, I'm on page 36. How am I doing for time? I'm doing okay. Sorry to drone on. I'm not going to make a bunch of videos about this. I may make one or two more. I'll try and get something out of it that is positive that I can share with you, because the movie that they made based on this is dark and harsh, and it was also used as an inspiration of the movie King Kong. If you're familiar with the movie, especially the more modern versions, I'm thinking of the one with Jack Black in it, the movie King Kong, and they did a great job with the steamship, and the characters as they're leaving to go on this journey to try and find King Kong. It's also, I believe, based partly on this. Partly anyway. I don't know how much it is or not, but we'll find out, I suppose, when we get through the rest of the book. So anyway, that's my synopsis of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness so far. I've been wanting to read it for some time, and I'm glad to finally be getting through it. And what are you reading these days? I hope you're reading lots of things that are more encouraging and inspiring than this, because this is a little bit it's a kind of a dark Halloween type of mood. It's not a Christmas book. We're coming close to Christmas, and I really shouldn't be reading this in December, but I'll get over it, and I'll get it processed, and I'll move on to something better, and we'll go from there. Hopefully I can learn something from it of value, and and not get too discouraged from it, because it is a dark theme about the darkness of human nature. So that's that. Video number 1. Thank you for watching. God bless you. I love you. I hope you're doing great. I hope you're happy and healthy. Hope you're getting lots of fresh air. Sorry for spitting sometimes. I'm not used to talking. I'm used to thinking and reading. And so to actually speak out words, I never get a chance to speak except when I'm making these videos. I lead a pretty solitary, quiet life. I wish I did have somebody to discuss books with, but I don't, and so I discuss them with you, and you don't talk back. So it's pretty much a one-way dialogue that I'm having here, and maybe that is a statement about this time in my life that is interesting as well. So I never thought of it that way before, but I'm glad that I could spend this time talking to you, wherever you are out there. Hopefully you're listening 100 years from now, and you're trying to analyze Heart of Darkness and saying, how can I learn from that? Is it helpful? That'd be something, wouldn't it? God bless you, wherever you are, whenever you are. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, okay? Talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.